Hey guys, what is going on? It's Fen here again. So today we're going to be actually making some swirls particle effects inside of Adobe After Effects. This is my first Adobe After Effects tutorial. I haven't used After Effects in quite a while now, so I wanted to get back into using it, and this is a great opportunity to kill two birds with one stone, as they like to say here in England. And yeah, it doesn't require any plugins. It's all built-in stuff inside of After Effects. This is CS6. So let's get started by first creating a new composition. So we're going to go over here to the project, and we're going to click this button down here which says create new composition. Alternatively, you can go through the file new. I'm just going to go click on this, and you don't have to name it. Alternatively, you can, depending on what you're doing, but this is a tutorial, so I'm going to kind of keep everything default. But of course, if it's your own project, then it's advisable to name things. So I'm going to keep the duration to 10 seconds and the frame rate 29.97 is absolutely fine, and then we're going to hit OK. So it's made a new composition. It's 10 seconds long, and what we're going to do now is I'm going to right click here in the blank area in the composition, and we're going to go to new, and we're going to use solid, and it can be any color you want. The color is irrelevant. It's easier to use a different color than black because you can't really see it because of the black background. So we're just going to use that. Make sure it's obviously comp size, and hit OK. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab the pen tool now. This is basically used on the pen tool. Most other particle based stuff like trapcode, particular and whatnot, you use things such as lights and stuff to animate. Obviously you can animate it just by the actual position, but in our case we're going to be using an actual spline to drive the actual animation. So in any case, you would just draw a spline. I'm going to do something like this, which is gonna kind of spell out my name in one continuous line, if you like. So my name is Will, nice to meet you, and this is basically just gonna do this, and I'm just gonna do some curves at the end here to show you kind of how it does work, and then we can bring it back and just connect it to the actual start. So you can see this kind of looks a little bit strange, but you will kind of get the gist of it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to click on this little selection tool. The shortcut is V, and we want to grab a vert in which is going to be the first point, so the first active point. I want it to be here, and this might already be the first active point, and I believe it actually is. All you would do though is you would select the vert that you want. You would right click, go to mask shape paths, and use set first, and that's basically just going to put a highlight around it. Excuse me, my throat is really bad. And that's going to basically tell the actual the tool we're going to use, the effect. Now this is the first point, and we want it to start there, and then we can decide which way, if we want to go clockwise or anti-clockwise. It's really our choice. So what we're going to do now is on the cyan solid, we're going to right click, we're going to go to effects, and we're going to go down to, if I can remember where it is, it's under, maybe generate, yeah, it's under generate, and then all the way down the bottom to Vegas. Now what Vegas will do is you won't see anything immediately, and that's simply because you need to hide the actual mask around this. And funny enough, it actually gives you a yellow colour, so it's very difficult to see because of the mask. So if you come down to this icon here, which will toggle the mask's visibility, we can see, if we look at this closely, we can see that there's some yellow highlights around the edges. So over here in the Vegas settings, we have to change the stroke to mask path, which is going to be this mask or the path. And we also need to come down here to the blend mode and use transparent. That way it's actually going to get rid of the actual mask colour and just leave the actual outlines, which looks really cool. Now the segments here are set to 32. Now with 32 segments we're getting this kind of jagged look, which looks kind of cool, but we don't want that. So normally you would think to bring this up to increase it to a solid. Unfortunately it doesn't work that way. It actually just gives you these little lines which look kind of cool, look like stitches, and we actually want to reduce this to 1, and when we add 1 it's going to give us this very nice long line. Now you do have a few settings here, one of them being the actual length, which is important for the right result. I'm going to make this maybe 0.7. The rotation is practically the animation. We also have some other settings down here, such as hardness. How hard do we want this to look? The width of it as well. Do we want to make it thicker or thinner? And of course the colour. The colour really doesn't matter. You can choose any colour you want. We're going to play with that a little bit later on. But these are the kind of the settings that you want to mess around with and get your own look. The start opacity is, as it says, the start. So do we want the front to be 0 or 1, which means 100%? We've got the mid opacity, midpoint position. So we can change that, and we have the opacity. So we can bring the opacity down on the mid, and on the end we can actually bring it up so it looks like it's actually vanishing in the middle. You can play with this as much as you want, and you can obviously, the position means where is the actual middle point. If you can see, you could probably animate this as well to make it look really, really cool. But yeah, I'm going to leave it like that, and maybe just bring it down a little bit and move this to something like that, and we can just reduce this a little bit. Okay, something like that, I think. Looks good. Okay, so what we want to do now is we can actually add a few more things to this. So we could actually just right click, go to effects, we could go to generate, and we could probably generate a, it would be if it was on a generate. I know it's under here somewhere. I'm not familiar enough with After Effects to know what everything is off by heart, unlike Photoshop and Cinema 4D. We're looking for glow. Now I know it's not under distort, it's probably under stylize, and it's a glow. There we go. So we've added a glow. We can actually duplicate this glow if we want to make it a little bit more dramatic, and we can play around with the settings and whatnot. If we want it to be more defined, like a lightsaber, and we can maybe play with the glow threshold as well to kind of have the end fading off. And then if we just hit run preview up here, it's not going to do anything because we forgot to animate it, derp. So let's go back to the Vegas, and it's very, very easy to animate this. So first thing you want to do is determine which way you want this to shoot. So going negative makes it go anti-clockwise. Going positive makes it go clockwise. We want it to go clockwise. So what we want to do at the start, we want to make sure everything is on 0. And then we want to go to this rotation and the evolution. So the 0 times means evolution. 1 evolution equals 360 degrees. So we want to put 1 in here. We don't need to put 360 because then that would be 360 revolutions. And just to give you an example, if we bring this up to 360, you can see the revolutions actually pop to 2 times the amount. So we just want this to be 1, because 1 will basically mean the animation has gone round the entire spline once. So what we want to do is add a keyframe at the beginning. To see your keyframes, click on your actual your layer that you're putting keyframes on and press U on your keyboard for U2, and you can go to the end and you can basically have another keyframe, but we actually put 1 at the beginning here. It actually has to be 0, and then at the end we actually need to add it to a 1. So it's basically going that full revolution over this length. As you can see, if we stop at every so often, you can see it goes to 214, and then it can go on to 238, and so on and so forth. So now if we RAM preview this, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit because RAM preview works on the distance the camera is So at this distance, it's actually going to render out really, really fast, which is cool. So as you can see here, we're getting some pretty cool results. It's kind of backwards in a sense because the beginning in this term is actually faded out. So we would want to really go into our settings, and we would want to reduce the opacity at the beginning, and at the end we would want to bring it up, and then that way just basically reverse them, so now it looks like the end is falling off, and that looks pretty damn cool to me. It's not particularly crazy looking, if that makes sense. So what we can do is we can right click again, go to new, and this time we want to add an adjustment layer. Now adjustment layers are pretty important because they affect overall layers, so anything below this adjustment layer will be affected. It's kind of like a non-destructive way of adding effects to overall compositions, which is really, really cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on this, we're going to go to effects, and we're going to go to distort, and we're going to add a turbulence displace. Now what a turbulence displace will do is it will actually displace anything underneath. So we can play around with these settings, such as the amount of displacement, how big we want it. We want something maybe around that. And with the actual size, we can make it smaller, which will make this a lot more smaller in terms of ripples. And the complexity is, as it says, how complex do you want this to look? That looks actually really, really cool. Now, with great power comes great render times. So remember that. The more effects and stuff you add, the longer it will take to RAM preview and in full render out at the end. So keep that in mind, because it can be a pain in the ass, especially if you start adding effects and you don't have a decent computer and you're like, this looks awesome, but when it comes to rendering out, it just takes forever. It's like 5 hours to render something out, like a 10-second clip, and that is insane. So make sure your computer can handle it before you unleash your creativity on all of the cool things that After Effects can actually give you. I mean, you can add such stuff as blur in here, which we might add blur. So let's just go to blur, and we can use, I don't know which blur is the best. I guess we could use motion blur, if I can find it. Box blur, nope. Maybe this fast. Well, not fat. Faster. There we go, fast blur. I knew it was there. So let's add some fast blur, and we can increase this up, which looks pretty cool. Maybe we don't want it that much. Maybe something like 2 or 1. Yeah, 1 looks pretty good. A subtle effect, but pretty nice, especially when it's moving. So let's just play this out, and it actually looks pretty cool. We get some really nice jagged effect. It actually kind of looks like chalk. So maybe you would want to make this white instead of a blue color, and it could look like you're actually chalking something. You could add a chalkboard to the end of this, and it would look really, really cool. Yeah, I think that looks pretty cool. As soon as the RAM preview is done, we can see it in real time, which is probably going to look awesome. There we go. So it's going really fast. It's going to all erratic and chaotic, and it looks really, really cool. The glow effect looks really nice as well. So yeah, I mean, that is pretty much it. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments. And if you want to see more After Effects tutorials, then please let me know. I don't often do After Effects tutorials because I don't often use it myself. But I do enjoy using After Effects because it is a very creative program. And again, if you want stuff like Photoshop tutorials, Illustrator tutorials, After Effects tutorials, and Cinema 4D tutorials, then by all means leave a comment. And I mean, if no one's going to request them, I'm not going to do them. But if you do request them, then I'll by all means happy to do them. And that is pretty much it. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this short tutorial, and I will catch you guys in the next episode. See you then. Peace.